Okay, so we're back. I go to Steven. Watch yours here. Get two different versions in here. Let me watch them both. Hmm. So overall, the ball's speed is a little slow at times, and it kind of changes a little bit. But I really like the paddle speed. Like, you got a lot of neat stuff going on with the paddle, and it feels pretty natural. And I kind of like this upward swipe thing that this one has a tendency to do. And so that upward swipe that knocks it across looks really good. But yeah, the ball speed is a little inconsistent. Again, I think that's something you just kind of play around with. I mean, it probably cause you to have to shift some stuff in the animation overall, but I think otherwise, that's the paddle motion is actually looking really good. So this is a really interesting one. So cool. Let's move on. This is Cody. Yeah. So this again, kind of thinking in terms of staging. It's an awfully big video with this much of the action happening in it. Go ahead and watch it again at regular speed. So I think you got some pretty good stuff going on here with the timing and or with the spacing. I think it goes a little fast overall. Feels like like this is a expert level or something. Um, but yeah, the ball's actually moving pretty quick. But otherwise, I actually think it's looking pretty good. I guess you can justify that. The um, the paddles are maybe not moving quite as. They're kind of moving, just sort of drifting a little bit. And again, the fact that it's just kind of so far away, I wish we could get in there a little bit closer to where we can see it. Yeah, and it does feel just a touch fast to me. But otherwise, I think you kind of have the angles, and you're kind of keeping at least a consistent speed, even if it is just a little too fast overall. Matthew Wagner. Hmm. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. Couple of somewhat odd things. I think it's kind of interesting how it grows out of the center. But I'm pretty confident that was intentional. Um, the the speed of the ball seems pretty good. Maybe it's a little fast at spots and speeds up just a touch, but it's really not bad. And I like kind of what you have going on here is like this one is kind of sort of drifting and waiting for it, whereas this one's everywhere. And I wonder if you could have amplified that. This one feels frantic, and I know you kind of mentioned that. I wonder if you could amplify that just by reducing how much this one moves. So only have it move when it has to, like the ball's coming toward it, so it moves very precisely to the location it needs to, instead of sort of drifting around and waiting for it. And That way this one's movement would feel really frantic in comparison. It's not necessarily anything wrong with it, just sort of a way to improve it a little bit. But overall, it looks pretty good. There's something that happens to the text right there when that happens. I think it's probably was supposed to change to a different number or something, but otherwise this is looking pretty good. I kind of like whatever you got going on with the texturing here. It kind of feels like a old TV screen or something like that. So yeah, it's looking pretty neat. Let's see. I think we have one more. Downloaded it. I think this is Amanda. And if we watch this, okay, this is neat. I know you also did. See, you also did a little bit of the squash and stretch on the ball. It has a little bit of that feeling again, like it kind of slows down right before it gets to the paddle, and kind of holds on the paddle before it comes off again. And again, that's kind of just breaking the tangents and making that work correctly. It's also a little short lengthwise, but it's a good start. I also think you're doing one thing in here that's kind of neat. I'm not sure. I think you're doing it intentionally. I don't think it's just stretching it. Yeah, that when the paddles move, they kind of stretch a little bit. And I think that's kind of a neat little effect happening. Yeah, it is significantly shorter than it really needs to be. So otherwise, looking good. Let me go ahead and see how much time I have left on this video. Okay, so I had intentions of trying to open up somebody else's file and show you sort of an example of what was going on in some of these that weren't working so well. Instead, I'm just going to go ahead and animate this one really quick myself. So start there, frame 14, frame 24. So the keyframe. And so this is what a lot of people were getting on theirs. The ball would come in toward the paddle, and then it would kind of slow down and change directions. And if we were to just sort of plot this a point at a time, you would see that the distance that the ball travels over these sections here just gets smaller and smaller, like it's slowing down. If we go look at our graph editor, you'll actually see why that is. Go back to the top view so you can see. And it's because our translate x, which is our forward and back, that's actually what's happening. It's moving a shorter and shorter distance as it gets closer. So again, we can click this button to make it linear, and then at least on our x direction, it doesn't do that quite as much. Now our y still may have something going on there. It really doesn't. Our z, it's kind of got something else happening. So we can kind of play around with how that looks. But if we were to look at this, the ball's actually probably still kind of moving in a curve. Like if we were to track this, it would kind of dip up like this. And that's what we're actually seeing here with these. So we select those two and turn those to linear. And we also need to probably do that with these as well. And this is going to just feel a little bit more like it's traveling kind of at a steady pace. Now this doesn't mean that this is always how you treat the animation, but in this specific case, we want the ball to feel like it's traveling in a straight line and kind of moving at a pretty consistent pace. And so that's what most people were having issues with. The other issue that people were having is, if I play this animation back, it's kind of playing at a relatively consistent pace. Some people were getting stuff that felt a little bit more like maybe like this, like it's coming in kind of fast and then it kind of slows down after it hits. So hopefully that's playing back at a reasonable speed. The way you fix that is you really just have to shift your keys around. I mean, you're playing with your timing and making your timing work. So moving this back around and saying, okay, I want it to feel a little bit more consistent. And so that feels maybe a little bit more consistent. sort of a this sort of timing. So hopefully that makes sense. Those were the two biggest issues most people were having. I guess kind of three if you count the fact that it was kind of arcing a little bit. Um, the other thing that people were getting a little bit of is when they were doing some squash and stretch, they would have like a squash key here or something, or a stretch key here, but then the ball would get to the paddle and it would kind of stick there for a couple frames. So you're getting a little bit of that going on in a few of them, and that's just something you have to watch out for when doing animation. Squash and stretch happens really quickly over just like maybe 2 or 3 frames sometimes. So when you spend too much time doing the squashing and stretching when it contacts this point, it just makes it feel a little sticky. So we'll look into more of the squash and stretch stuff in a little bit when we get into the bouncing ball. But otherwise, overall, pretty good work, everybody. Again, feel free to use this feedback to revise your work and resubmit it for a grade change.